The average 20-something young adult working 2 jobs to make ends meet, pay off his student loans, mortgage, and credit card bills to avoid high-interest buildup, has often been cited as a cautionary tale for the rest of us. Debt is bad, right? In fact, it's not just bad, it is the literal beginning of the end. For example, student loans are supposedly structured to take 10 years to pay off. However, most Americans spend an average of 21 years clearing off their debts. To reaffirm, debt is bad. So why did billionaire Elon Musk take out $61 million in mortgages on 5 California properties, all the while also pledging 40% of his personal shares in Tesla for collateral for other loans? How did this loan not set him back? Keep watching this video to find out. At an average rate of 3.01%, Musk's $60 million would have gathered a total of $1,840,000 in interest. And yet, Musk sits comfortably as the richest man in the world with a net worth shy of $250 billion. We'd like to make an amendment here before we move on. Debt is bad, but not if you're ultra wealthy. You see, interest rates rely on credit scores. If your credit history is good, you'll garner less interest on your loans. If you're the average American, you will garner an interest rate of 10 to 13%. But if your credit score becomes subpar, the interest rates on your loan triples. Musk, on the other hand, has tremendous credit scores. His interest rate would come up to 1%. This is just one way billionaires use debt to, well, stay billionaires. Another way that debt favors the ultra-wealthy is through the policies of banks and wealth management departments. In 2018, wealth management departments made loans worth $600 billion at a 1% interest rate to billionaires. In 2022, banks are still eager to take the presumptive risk. Why is that? For starters, the loans are as risk-free as humanly possible, and because banks tend to lobby around wealthy people. But what would compel men and women having a net worth in billions to take out loans? The answer? Tax loopholes. The rich keep getting richer, but surprisingly, they make it happen by acquiring debt. It doesn't make sense. Isn't debt supposed to be the beginning of the end? Also, why would a billionaire require a $1 million loan from the bank? Let's look at this with an example. In 2017, Jeff Bezos paid $0 in taxes. Debt comes under non-salaried income and cannot be taxed. However, the profit you make is taxable. Bezos declared $40 million in profit, but simultaneously showed that the entirety of that profit was spent on company expenses and therefore could not be taxed. On the other hand, let's say a small business owner takes out a bank loan. The loan cannot be considered income since the business owner has to pay that back to the bank. However, the money he or she makes that is their profit would be taxable. Small businesses cannot show the same level of business expenditures as Amazon. They'll make no money. For the average Joe, taking out a loan is representative of exasperating all other means. It's your last resort. For the ultra-wealthy, however, it is a way to rent money. While you might take out a loan to make a car payment, a billionaire would use that loan to facilitate his or her lifestyle and then return the amount in full to the bank when needed. Loans are not taxable. The billionaire would have to pay virtually $0 in tax, all the while riding a Ferrari to grab a carton of milk. As of 2022, billionaires in the US have roughly twice as much money as us average folk. The industries that create the most billionaires are finance and investments, followed by technology. Then there are some celebrities in the fashion and beauty industries. For instance, Rihanna was the only billionaire under 40 to feature on Forbes' annual list of America's richest self-made women in 2021. The richest people, including Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, and Bill Gates, pay virtually zero taxes according to IRS statistics, and this is completely legal. They often pay a little portion of the hundreds of millions, if not billions, in income taxes. And one way this works is by using debt as leverage. How? Stay with us to find out. First, only profit is taxed for entrepreneurs. So the way these rich people pay almost zero taxes is by matching their profit to the amount of expenses they have for their business. Let's use Jeff Bezos as an example. He paid no federal income taxes in 2007 at all. Amazon stock nearly doubled in value that year. Bezos also disclosed $46 million in earnings, the majority of which came from investments and interest. There were various costs that canceled out the total amount. Second, when it comes to stocks, you only pay taxes on the earnings when you sell them. Unrealized gains, on which Silicon Valley fortunes are built, are therefore held onto by billionaire tech titans. So, what does debt have to do with this? Considering that billionaires don't disclose their income and don't sell their shares, you're probably left scratching your head about how they manage to roam around in Lambos and live in huge mansions. Well, there are loans. Borrowing money is something we usually do out of need for things like buying a car or a house. But for the really wealthy, it's a way for them to access billions without generating income and paying income tax. Loans don't qualify as income since they must be paid back. The richest people also have a lot of collateral, like shares they own. Since the shares are technically borrowed money, they may cling on to them, use them as collateral without cashing them out, and access cash without having to pay taxes on it. The wealthiest Americans usually save up to $163 billion in income taxes every year, and that's how they can afford all the luxuries we can only dream of. Everything is fair game as long as you're following the rules. There are many ways to stay rich, but for someone who's extremely wealthy and wants to avoid paying taxes, the key is to disclose as little income as possible. The average American family, on the other hand, has people who are paid workers, which is something the government banks on. Dollar for dollar, millionaires pay less in taxes than the American working class. Billionaires typically pay 8.2% of federal income tax, compared to 14% for the average American household. Mind-boggling, isn't it? Debt is the new way to stay rich, but there's good and bad debt. The wealthy prefer good debt and investment debt. The less fortunate people rack up consumer debt and bad debt. If you're a small business owner, it's important for you to know about the two. Don't just think about debt as a four-letter word because it's clearly keeping the rich as wealthy as they are. These are only a few examples of well-known opposites, which also include night and day, water and oil, and millionaires paying their not-so-fair share of taxes. The fact that wealthy people will go to great lengths to minimize their taxes is probably not surprising. The actual tax rate for billionaire Warren Buffett is 0.10%. Jeff Bezos' share in Amazon is 0.98%. Michael Bloomberg, failed presidential candidate, 1.3%. Elon Musk, 3.27%. The fact that very rich people retain their wealth differently than ordinary people accounts for a large chunk of these tiny taxes. Neither is it hidden under the bed, nor is it sitting in a bank account. They invest money in securities such as stocks and real estate, which are only taxed upon resale, so it's unrealized and doesn't count as revenue until that time. Buffett, for instance, declared earnings of $125 million from 2014 to 2018, despite a $24.3 billion increase in net worth. How do you think he managed to do that? By saving on taxes, that's how. Of course, the 25 wealthiest Americans might use the help of tax professionals who are skilled in using amazing gymnastics for tax avoidance. The shocking part is that all of this tax dodging is practically legal since it involves using legal strategies allowed by the US tax system to pay less in taxes. For example, owning a sports team could count as a tax deduction. Philanthropy is another popular strategy for lowering tax bills. It not only helps billionaires save money, but also boosts their public image while being able to zoom around in Ferraris, sporting Givenchy and Gucci clothes at the same time. So even if Jeff Bezos might not be able to bathe in billion-dollar bills, at least not in the spur of the moment, everyone knows and respects the clout that comes with being worth $200 billion. Credit is essentially how the very wealthy thrive. Debt may have become an awful burden for many Americans, but since loans aren't counted as income, it's the ideal tool for billionaires to avoid giving up more of their riches. To sum it all up, being poor ultimately costs more than being rich, since you usually have to pay higher banking fees, higher interest rates, and even higher prices for basic necessities. Do you have a job in this economy and with debt? Clearly, it's not the best way to become rich. Let's be honest, nobody wants to keep working with a minimum wage and paying insanely high taxes when billionaires are getting richer by paying considerably less taxes than the average American. Thanks for sticking around till the end of the video. If you enjoyed the video, smash the like button and subscribe to our channel for more awesome videos just like this.